Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the AFC podcast. Your co-host today, guest starring is Snow Cappadora, Pet Me Officer Snow. She's going to be going to school for search and rescue very shortly. And our special guest today is Peter Weidner, coming in from the Hudson Valley. What's going on, Pete?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Did I get your name right?
You did, actually. Most people pronounce it Weidner, but you got it right the first time. Thank you very much.
That was, honestly, I was just thinking Weiss and just going with it.
Well, whatever you did it right, and I appreciate it.
I messed up many names, and I don't have my reading glasses on, so I got lucky there.
I like your co-host.
Oh, Pet Me Officer Snow. Yeah, she got to make her ShopRite debut today, and escort me as we go through the shopping list. So I bought her because she was being so good, and everybody in the supermarket met the dog. I'm not even kidding.
I'll bet.
No, I'm not.
Dogs are quite the attention magnets, you know.
I was just trying to food shop, but I got her some applesauce, cinnamon free, and she absolutely loves it.
She eats better than I do.
No, well, like I might as well share it. Have you ever heard of V-Shred?
I'm afraid not.
It's there's this guy, I think it's Vince. He's sort of like a popular I guess fitness guy. You always see
no wonder I've never heard of him.
Yeah, you always see him on Instagram, you always see him on TikTok. And I downloaded the app just to kind of like get re-familiar on what else actually exists, because I've been working out since I was 16 years old. I understand a lot about fitness. I do. I'm in a state of mind where I just do not really care enough to, control my diet. And quitting smoking is actually harder when you get older. So I downloaded the app and I'm going through it, and I saw sort of like a grocery list, and these are all things that I eat, and it just kind of clicked with me on the timing of it all, because I've never actually strategically like timed out eating. I've always timed and kept it in the context of the gym where I know that, but it never really occurred to me, because I'm actually an impulse eater, just to kind of, I guess, have the appropriate timing on when to actually eat some food. So I'm playing with that. And I'm probably going to drop weight really quick, but I'm going through, I guess, actor mode, where I actually care about my body and I want to prepare for the role at the right time.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
It's going to be a fun summer.
Yeah. I was blessed with, I guess, like a really, really fast metabolism. So I've been able to eat pretty much whatever. And I'm a junk food person. I'll eat anything: cake, cookies, steak, red meat, everything I possibly can. And I never gain an ounce. So I'm sure I'll be dead at 50, but my body doesn't seem to mind weight-wise.
Well, we'll see. Just like get your blood work done once in a while, and just make sure you're hydrated. You'll, quality over quantity. A solid
right.
50 years. I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said, "It's not the amount of years in your life, but the life in your years."
Yeah, for sure.
That's Abraham Lincoln, and you can quote me on that. That I know for sure. And then, it's not really a metabolism thing for me, I don't think. It partially is, but between smoking and drinking, I definitely just was in that mode of like, it doesn't matter. And not only that, my body is
there, brother.
No, dude, my body is a bit of a hoarder, and because I love food, right. I think my body is just like, why let it go? So, and of course, being Italian is it's a blessing and a curse.
Oh, mangiare.
Yeah, so I'm one of those Italians where like my bones compress as you get bigger, but it kind of, there's a lot of inflammation and deceiving.
Gotcha.
I don't know. But anyway, how about we're going to talk about you, Peter. We had a little bit of a brief conversation prior to the podcast, getting the rundown, getting the prep, having that heart-to-heart moment. But something you said that really I connected with was being born in Brooklyn.
For sure.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, actually, right on Ocean Avenue near Prospect Park.
I was on Seaview.
Oh, okay.
I think it was either, I'm almost 100% sure it was 96th Street or 92nd Street. Like,
Is that
uh,
Bay Ridge or?
that's Canarsie.
Oh, it's Canarsie. Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My best
Uh,
friends grew up in Canarsie, so I was there a lot actually.
oh, and it like once upon a time, very Italian Jewish neighborhood,
Uh-huh.
especially in
Yeah,
the city.
once upon a time.
Well, I mean, the city grows, the city
Yeah,
changes,
for sure.
like it change like it does. It changes. And that's the kind of funny thing, with the culture of New York City. It's the neighborhoods are like they're Little Italy. It goes without saying, little things like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, what is it? Little Italy's very little now. It's like just a couple of blocks now in
Yeah,
Lower
it's like
Manhattan, right?
yeah, it's right next to Chinatown.
Yeah, it's
And
tiny.
and fun fact, we got 77 neighborhoods, like just all over the city of New York. But
Oh,
they
that I didn't know.
77. Yeah, it ranges in different sizes because, like Middle Village, I think, is in Queens. It's a very small section of Queens near Whitestone, and it's a village. It's a tiny little village out there.
Yeah, and it was an interesting experience growing up in New York because like I'm biracial, so I've never really had I guess a specific home when it comes to ethnicity, and people always kind of like I like to describe myself as a racial Rorschach blot. Like a lot of people will just walk up to me speaking Spanish or any kind of given language that you would find floating around in New York City and expecting me to return in kind, and that's okay. Like I never minded that, but it was always, I think, an enriching experience to grow up with such a diverse and colorful background and area. So.
I think being born in Brooklyn, it's very interesting when you're born there, because you do have parents from either Italy, Ireland, Israel, Russia. All
Right.
of that stuff is where they're from. It's very specific, and yes, there's an ancestry to that. There's a racial result of that, but there's something more to this. Like there's something more than I don't think we're really acknowledging at the moment. Is that I personally, this is how I feel, is that if you were born, especially in Brooklyn, that is almost like your country, your origin, that right there. It's so specific where we have such a common demeanor and culture at the exact same time where we include our roots, where it just creates this unique flavor of mafango,
Yeah, there certainly is that element to it as well.
So yes, I identify as my heritage is Brooklyn. That's it. You heard it here, folks, because it's still the truth, and it's its own. And we just don't talk about it. Where are you from? Where are you from? What's your ancestry? Blah blah blah.
Very
And
cool.
apparently it's offensive now to ask what's your heritage.
Oh, okay. That's news to me, but I mean, hey, again, sensibilities change over the times. Again, I used to do stand-up comedy for the Gotham Comedy Club for a couple of years before I got into acting.
Right.
And yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I loved it, but I kind of stopped doing it once the pandemic rolled around. I'm looking to get back into it. And it was also coincided with me moving upstate to New Paltz, so just got it. It made it a little hard.
For Peter Weidner, everybody. Peter Weidner.
Wow, you got the audio file. I love it.
I had to click it just for a second
Yeah,
because I
for
saw
sure.
it before, but I apologize. I didn't know the volume was that loud, but
That's okay.
I'll probably keep that. It'll stay on the show. But how long were you stand-up comedian for? Just a couple of years?
Yeah, just a couple of years. I mean, I did it in I want to say mid 20s to like maybe I stopped when I was around 31, and I'm like 38 now. So
I'm
again,
36 recently, so I mean, I understand the once upon a time part of what you just said.
right. And don't get me wrong, I'd like to get back into it. There was a period in my life where honestly, I just wasn't feeling funny or feeling like I could go on stage and make the kind of show that I wanted to make, due to my own personal reasons. Like, I'm a very, very introspective and analytical person. And sometimes, the world's been changing a lot, and not, sometimes it can be scary. Sometimes it can be, confusing. And I don't know, with a lot of the stuff that was going on, during like the 2016 to, almost now era, I wasn't feeling like I could make fun of this stuff in the way that I wanted to, because it was just almost overwhelmingly crazy in the world. And I don't know, it's also sensibilities change, and I'm not going to, speak either for or against cancel culture, but, comedians were getting a little bit more reserved in terms of what they felt comfortable doing on stage. And, I fell victim to that, but, hey, I'm looking to get back into it.
Is that part of the growth where, as a stand-up comedian, identifying boundaries, finding the funny? Because comedy to me was very mysterious as an art form.
For sure.
And like as the audience member, you got to separate yourself from who they are and what they're saying, because they're not one and the same. But you guys somehow find a way to navigate the humor in everything.
Yeah, for sure. My golden rules were either attack yourself and always punch up, don't punch down. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be making fun of, people who are either marginalized or can't, don't have a big voice.
That's like comedy and bull. There's no.
Yeah, I don't like bully comics. Like,
there's no room for that, and that's not what it is. That's not even an art form. Well,
I mean, again, arguably, you could say that it is. I mean, I could name some bully comics out there. To me, like, Bill Maher's a bully comic. He's a very kind of punch down kind of guy. He's the kind of guy where, if you confront him on a subject that he doesn't know too much about, it's like, move along. Okay, move along. The guy, like, categorically hates young people now because he just either, I don't know, doesn't understand a lot of youth culture or what's going on or technology. And, so I don't know, like, that's, to me, I don't like that kind of comedy where it's always kind of, shitting on people. Like, that's not my style anyway.
But regardless of the stage, is that what he carries with him everywhere he goes?
From my experience, like, don't get me wrong, like, like, again, you could look at comics through history, like almost like Dennis Miller. He was like a quintessential, like, hero voice to liberals back in the day when he started, when I was a kid. And, he's like a staunch conservative now. Like, I guess maybe your voice changes over time. And to me, he's like Maher, he's one of those comics where, he kind of started his career as like a almost champion of the common man. And when I look at them now, that's not what I see.
Is that because your perception changed or his performance changed?
I mean, I guess maybe both. Hey, I guess you could leave it to the audience. I don't know if you watch their shows or if you've watched their stand-up or, but that's kind of what I see.
This is a coincidence because remember we spoke briefly about Joe Dirt earlier.
For sure.
Well, your guy Dennis Miller was that radio host in the movie Joe Dirt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it came out in 2001, and I'm not sure we could actually find it, but this is a really underappreciated film. Joe Dirt. It's beautiful. It's a great. No,
I'll have to check it out.
No, it is. It's a great story. It's not what you would expect. It's not what you would expect, and especially with Kevin Spade performing, a couple of movies after Chris Farley had passed away. This is one of those roles where he kind of just had to stand on his own 2 feet, and I think he crushed it.
For sure. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Worth it. You won't regret it. But I didn't know anything about, honestly, Dennis Miller, but I have seen his work.
I mean, yeah, he used to have a show on HBO called The Dennis Miller Show, and it was like one of these, very liberal voices of, like, I want to say the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, possibly, or maybe even a little before that. But if you've heard anything from Dennis Miller in the last 10 years, he's changed his tune on a multitude of social issues.
Just because of,
I don't know, like, they say as you get older, you get more conservative. I don't know if that's true. I'm only 38, so maybe I'm still in my liberal phase, but
my mother actually wouldn't allow us to have HBO by the time we were 10 or 11 or 12, or at least for me, because HBO, I don't know if they always had that type of content, but
yes, I used to work for them.
God bless your heart, because they're still like, I think they're great now that I'm older, especially producing some really good shows, I think.
For sure. I mean, traditionally speaking, they always have. Sopranos was one of those, like, groundbreaking shows from back in the day. But even before that, you had Oz, which was like a look into the prison system.
Yeah.
And they've always had some pretty cutting edge, groundbreaking and risk taking programming, which I did appreciate as well.
My mother wouldn't let us watch all those things. Like we weren't allowed to watch HBO anymore, mostly because of the nudity after 10 o'clock. But so I guess she, like most moms, no. All right. So
See, my dad actually, and to his credit, I would say, my mom was kind of like your mom, where she didn't want me watching a lot of that stuff. But my dad was the kind of guy who would bring me home like R-rated movies, because he wanted me exposed to that kind of stuff, and he wanted me to get a chance to kind of look at, well, this is what the world is looking at with, like, I'm not going to censor anything for you. I want you to understand this and make your own determinations about it. And, hey, arguably, I turned out okay.
Arguably. Well, no.
Arguably.
But a lot of that stuff probably contributes to your stand-up comedy. That's a lot of fuel.
For sure.
I don't think there's any wrong or right way to actually, I don't want to say raise your kid, but, you're going to find out about certain things in life one way or another. But
right.
I think he was probably preparing you in his own way and doing it in his own way, where he's not, I don't want to say like chastising or anything like that, but like not, if it were me, just not like neutering you in a sense, or not coddling you.
Yeah, and I was grateful for the experience, honestly, because when you do get exposed to real life situations that are kind of risque or potentially frightening, because you just haven't you haven't been. Sometimes you're in a situation with an adult, and adults, as we know, don't always act properly in every given situation. It kind of gives you some context to understand what is happening around you at an age where sometimes if you're not exposed to that kind of stuff, you wouldn't know how to act or how to behave, or that you're in an even dangerous situation.
You develop instincts, and that's the thing, though. Life, it's a long process, and it changes every single hour.
Yeah, it sure does. And you live, you learn.
That's the only way, honestly. But you got to live.
Gotta live.
But what about your day one comedy? What'd you do prior to that?
Okay, so day one comedy. So I took a chance because I was always interested. I've always been fascinated in the world of production. Either being in front of the camera, behind the camera, animation, voiceover. I used to make little skits, movies, and cartoons, even going as far back as like middle school, high school, stuff like that. And I always wanted to be on stage. I always wanted to try stand-up comedy. My comic idol growing up was George Carlin. I was watching George Carlin specials when I was like 8 years old. And I loved him when I was a kid. I thought he was, he utilized so many different techniques of like animation, alliteration, using his very animated kind of style of telling comedy, his voice, his inflections, just every aspect of his comedy. I thought there was so much thought put into it, and it comes off so seamlessly that I always thought he was a genius. I always looked up to him. I always admired him. And one day I got the bright idea to attend the Manhattan Comedy School. I grabbed a friend of mine and I said, hey, listen, we're going to go to the Manhattan Comedy School. We're going to learn how the industry works, what you're supposed to do, or how to be a stand-up comic. And I got to tell you, it was almost a completely worthless experience in the sense that they don't really tell you any of that stuff. They just kind of they kind of throw you in a room with a bunch of other comics who are, let's be honest, not really that interested in hearing your stuff. They want to just do their stuff. But the one really, really great thing about the Manhattan Comedy School was that as your final project, they take you to a real comedy club, in this case, the Gotham Comedy Club, and they give you a chance at a new talent show, and you do your set. And if they like you, you'll get invited back. And if they don't like you, you probably won't. But at least you got the experience to go up there in a real setting in New York City at a real comedy club and show them what you got. And we did that. And I was lucky enough or funny enough that they actually asked me to come back for a few years.
Nice.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
So like George Carlin, like I can connect with his impression on me personally, because He was like one of the yeah, like I remember when I first like I never knew his name growing up. I always knew this guy as wait, isn't that that's the real conductor from
That's
Shining
Mr. Conductor.
Shining Time Station.
Time Station, yeah.
And I grew up loving that show. Like I used to record on VHS Shining Time Station every single Saturday, like my entire youth until we ran out of like tapes.
Do you know who the conductor was before George Carlin? Why he got the job?
I remember there was a younger guy with a brown beard, but I don't know who that guy was.
Ringo Starr, and he was too drunk to do the show all the time.
No, dude, I had no idea.
So yeah, they hired Carlin. And fun fact, Carlin is not really the biggest fan of children, so it was kind of funny.
He told a really told a story.
He was great. He was fantastic. I loved him as Mr. Conductor, but yeah, watching him act with children was kind of an inside joke, at least for me. I was kind of cracking up just at that.
And I remember, who was it? Aunt Stacy and Uncle Henry or something like that, who actually in station and Schemer.
Yeah.
And Schemy, the kid, they look exactly the same.
What an era in television.
No, we don't make it's almost like Mrs. Doubtfire and kids children's television, like that type of theme on why they're performing and how they're performing. Even with Mr. Rogers, what's such a well-balanced stretch of like fun shows. Today I couldn't even tell you like what exists and how it is, because it seems to be so random and like I don't want to say obnoxious, because I'm sure my dad did not like Shining Time Station. He'd probably watch it when Ringo Starr was there. But I just, I can't really, it's just like as a filmmaker and a creative and not having children yet, it's hard for me to imagine what type of shows I would want them to watch, because, I don't have, I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. I guess, for me, I don't know, my perspective of it is like, kids are, I don't like to treat kids like they're stupid. They're little people. I mean, I don't mind. Again, like maybe this is where I got from my father. He didn't kind of hide things from me. He didn't shy me away from, nudity or cursing or violence. But it's also, you're not encouraging that behavior. You're understanding that this can be entertainment and that you should take it at face value or whatever. And I at least in my perspective is not to treat kids like they're dumb. Because then you're going to end up with dumb kids,
Yeah. And I guess,
treat them like little adults.
Mrs. Doubtfire, that was the exact same point of like why he pitched the show at the end of the film. And, it's actually kind of interesting. I saw recently this like BBC comedy special, but it was more like in the mid to later 2000 and into the teens, where there was this Mrs. Doubtfire like character being performed in Ireland, and it was called Mrs. Brown.
Okay.
I was kind of hoping you knew exactly what that was, but no, Mrs.
No
Brown,
idea.
like, dude, no, it's literally this. It's this like Robin Williams like actor, very similar in his pure Irish form. Bless his heart. Don't know too much about it, and it's very new. But the comedy, the twists, and clearly it's a guy who looks exactly like his Irish version of Mrs. Doubtfire, but it's Mrs. Brown. And the whole thing is one giant comedy show, but they would actually perform to the audience of adults, similar to Tyler Perry's Mr. Brown, where they would do it in front of a live audience and perform and just show it on BBC. But that's about it. And honestly, the guy just created an amazing, funny show. He won like some sort of Emmy award from the UK, which is their comedy TV award. And, it's just a kind of a curious thing where he doesn't treat people like they're stupid any more than we should treat kids like, that they're just not little people, which they are.
Right. That's what they are. They're little people, and you gotta teach them and shape them and help them grow. And in my opinion, not shield them too much from the realities of life, but try to illuminate and demonstrate to them in a safe way, what these things are.
Yeah. And I guess it's really kind of, it's a little bit of a challenge. And we're going into like, I think there is a little bit of like, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like we're going into uncharted territory and waters where like you're subject to attack now, just for speaking your mind.
Yeah. And hey, like, in my look, here's my take on that. Like, I think anybody should have the right and the ability to speak their mind, and that's okay. But you should also accept the responsibility and consequences of speaking your mind. You're going to be attacked or criticized, probably no matter what your opinion is, but you got to own it. And you got to accept the responsibility that if you say something stupid or ignorant or misinformed, then you might have to face some heat for it. And if you say something that maybe isn't stupid, ignorant, or misinformed, and it's just kind of, this may be the truth, then you also might have to face, the heat or the recognition for that as well. Like, I think it's a dangerous and slippery slope, especially for people who are creative, to not feel like they have the freedom to really express what's on their mind. And that's kind of the tricky thing, that made me get off the stage for a little while with comedy, because I just didn't feel like the atmosphere was necessarily right for me to say what I wanted to say. I'm not trying to denigrate anyone in any kind of comedy skit that I ever do, but like,
bad timing,
yeah, maybe. Yeah. But, but I kind of feel like sometimes that's a cop out. You should, regardless of the situation, if you really have a good intention behind the kind of comedy that you're trying to do, and it doesn't get a good reception, maybe you just have to have the balls to get up there and do it anyway. And maybe that's where, I lacked it.
So are you beating yourself up about passing on the opportunity to grow from something regardless of the outcome?
Well, like I said, I'm looking to get back on stage. So, maybe I took a hiatus. Maybe I was down, but I'm not out. You know what I mean?
From where we were, everything was in such chaos where there was like, sometimes you literally got to like when there's a storm that severe, you got to literally wait for all the leaves to fall before you start raking them up.
I agree. And that's kind of the mentality that I took. But I wanted to be careful, like not to just sit on the sidelines for the rest of my life. You got to get back in the game somewhere.
It'll suck you back in somehow. Like
it already is. Honestly, that's why I started doing the acting gigs. I mean, I wanted to not only challenge myself to try to do something new, do something that I found exciting, but also I was like, well, I want to be a part of that performance world again. And I want to get back on stage again. And I wanted to maybe just dip my toe in the water of trying to feel what that was like again. And acting for me has at least been a positive experience because it makes me feel like I'm in that world. I can do this. I'm having fun. I'm meeting a lot of interesting, fun people. And this is going to maybe hopefully take me back on the road of being a stage performer again.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about your acting? Like how have you been approaching, not so much the transition, but how do you go about like getting the experience, getting the gig?
Well, it's interesting. So I'll start with this. So I worked for HBO for 15 years. I started as an intern in their media library.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was a kid. I was like, 19 years old when I got that job. Great. And by the time I was 25, I was a broadcast technician for them. So I had been introduced to that world of broadcast and a lot of really interesting, really talented people, both in front of camera and off the camera, meeting editors, meeting actors, meeting, voice artists, meeting, people that were involved in almost every aspect of the industry, even the corporate higher ups, meeting the vice president of HBO and all this stuff. And it was really interesting and fun. And I wouldn't take that experience away for the world. I learned a lot. I met a lot of really interesting people, but it got me thinking like, oh, well, okay, well, I've done this for 10 years now. What else can I do in this? I like this industry, but I've kind of done this. Like, how do I get in front of the camera? And again, like that's when I started, looking into the stand-up comedy stuff. And I had gotten a job after, AT&T bought HBO a couple of years ago, and that's when I got laid off.
Right,
So,
right.
so I got, I started looking for work. I found a job in Albany working at a news station that was kind of in a similar capacity to what I was doing at HBO. And that almost felt like going backwards. Like I didn't feel like my career was going anywhere new. So, and at the same time, I'd always wanted to try acting. I always wanted to get into it, but I never really knew how to break in. And this is in my experience from other actors that I've talked to and other people that want to get into it, this is a weird experience. It's almost like a catch-22 because like, you would look into like talent agencies and casting agencies. And as you know, in the world of 2020 or 2015 plus, there's a lot of scams running around, and I would find talent agencies that would, ask you for like $1,000 up front. And then, you would never hear from them again. And I just didn't know who to turn to. But I got very lucky when I was working in Albany at that news station. A coworker of mine said that they had shot a couple commercials and had recommended like a free casting agency to me. They didn't ask for any money. They just wanted you to make a profile, have some pictures, to have some information about yourself, and submit to casting calls. And I just took a chance, did it one day, and the very first time I got cast for something was for. And again, I'm not an actor you would recognize. I do pretty much background and stand-in work, exclusively at this point. But the very first gig that I got was for something called, it was a Showtime show called Ripley. And I don't know if you guys, I don't think it's even out yet. But it's a period specific show. I think it's based on the talented Mr. Ripley. And, the very first day I was there, you got to go through the whole rigmarole of like hair, makeup, wardrobe. And it was like 200 extras that were going through all this. And we had a set on like one of those like old 1960s trains. And I just had such a blast getting the full experience and meeting 100 different people that were also like already, light years ahead of me in the game. And they gave me some advice and it's been a pleasure for me. I've only been doing this for actually May will make it 1 year as an actor. So, but I've already had the pleasure of being able to answer some questions for people who are less experienced than me. Like, oh, how do I do this? How do I get more casting calls? Oh, well, why don't you sign up for Central Casting or Casting Networks or Grant Wilfley Casting and just, being able to pay it forward to others that it was done for me when I first started has been a rewarding experience. And, it feels good to be performing again,
I know, I know exactly what you mean. Because I've that was my survival job, for like 2 years, almost, just background work, and just getting all that experience and all these different shows, meeting all these people, asking every single question you can. And I might have mentioned it before, but it did get to a point where it was unfulfilling because I'm more on, I'd like to be more on the creative side, not just not the guy in front of the camera necessarily. It was more about like creating something that I created, not just
for sure
contributing. Which I don't mind, but if it's the only thing you do and you got this constipation of imagination just building up.
Oh, I like that phrase, constipation of imagination. That's good.
You could keep it, but that's literally what it felt like. And because it's like, people get writer's block, or you just don't know what to write about or write. I was desperate to just like theatrically just act, and I did find a way to just sort of like hone it where you're not where it's like I was able to do it for 2 years, and I would just kind of hone it and just like not take for granted if like what the temperature was outside or inside, and just make up a character of my own and kind of just make it still, do exactly what you're supposed to do, but do it with some sort of intention that only I'm supposed to know anyway.
For sure.
So it was really the actual best place for me as an actor to really improvise and practice and do things like, that only I'm aware of. And it kind of like, it didn't bite me in the ass, but I did fuck up one time because no, I did. I didn't mean to, but I was really just in my headspace. And I was at the point, especially around the 1.5 year mark, where I'm kind of like, I'm like not desperate, but kind of pissed and fed up. So I was on set for The Affair, and it was just another background gig. And I'm not my cliche cop role anymore. I'm actually now a orderly. I'm like, all right. So no idea what it was at the time. So basically, you're the guy in the hospital, and you're the guy pushing people around because you're the guy operating the bodies. All right, I'm that guy. So I put together like an independent activity. I brought some Meisner training to it. I literally saw a kid in a cast. His name was Travis. I remember him to this day. He's a cool kid. But I would walk up to him during the scene, and I would just ask him more questions, and we would just start playing a game. How did you break your arm? And I would just literally write it down. So, the director, the boom operator would not know what I was saying, but take after take, for the entrance scene, all that stuff. And it's like hours. You things to kind of just, make things up. And that's what I would do. I would just make it up, but it wouldn't be, coming from me. I would literally, apply who's more important in the scene, Meisner one-on-one, the other person in the room. So, all right, here's the kid. This is my job. You're the kid in the cast. Let's make it real and have fun. But then I came into work that day not wanting to be on set. I was like, it was like I was very angry that I got to go to work because it just, I wasn't fulfilled, and it was spring and I want more.
Right.
But what ended up happening was like, I was like, you know what? I want to go home, but I'm not going to quit. So it occurred. I had the idea of, I don't care if I get fired. I didn't deliberately want to get fired, I remember, but I didn't care if I could get fired. I was at that point. And so what ended up happening was we moved forward in the scene. And this was on the episode of The Affair, the Showtime series.
Okay.
So the main point of that scene was the kid is sick. They were at a Yankee game. They got a little backstory, and they're coming to the hospital. He must have ate a hot dog, and he's throwing up green, which is he was basically given like the green, delicious zucchini, cucumber, naked juice. And I'm like, yeah, it's green. But they used it. It wasn't probably in the script, but it's just like, just use what you got.
Right.
And he spit up green. It was everywhere. It was like, oh yeah, that's green. So basically they finally called me and my scene partner, the other background actor, and they say, bring in the Gertie, which I did. And this is take one. And all right. I'm not going to talk to this kid and ask him, how'd you get so green and sick and stuff? No. But the doctor, the dad puts him on the gurney, and the doctor turns me and looks me right in the eye and says, take him to Bay 4. And then I said, copy that. And I screamed, excuse us. And we went right through that fucking door. And the director loved it. And then, so I went from getting a $70 that day as the background actor to 905.
You got a principal role. I
got a fucking principal role. I had
Congratulations.
Wagon, and I even said, don't take the taxes out. And they did. And 2 weeks later, I got a $600 check.
Hey, that's great, man.
And to this day, I still get royalties. I get $2, $5, all these little things here from that one episode. I'm like, why the fuck can't I just have that kind of just one line getting $2 after 7 years of that one thing where I made an extra by now $200 from that one fucking line, Yeah,
no, I hear you. So it can be frustrating, especially with background work, because you're kind of, you already know going in, you're kind of the lowest of the low in terms of actors on set. You know what I mean? Like, yes. You're not always treated with, let's just say dignity. You can be out there shooting for summer in the middle of winter, or vice versa, shooting for winter in the middle of summer, and you're wearing a fur coat in 90-degree weather. I was doing that on The Marvelous.
Oh my
Mrs.
God.
Maisel.
Yeah.
But it can be grueling, and it is a job, and but for me, it's where I want to be. And I had a similar experience on the set of Poker Face, where I got picked to do a scene with Natasha Lyonne, and I'm like, this was like the most fun thing I could ever imagine that happened.
I just watched that whole series, and I'm glad season 2's coming back because I actually like the idea of the show.
I liked it. I actually did enjoy it.
I do. I like the show, and it's filmed in the Hudson Valley too.
Yeah, that's where I got extremely fortunate because I had like a 15-minute commute to set as opposed to like heading down to the city from New Paltz, which is kind of a pain in the ass. You know what I mean?
Well, which episode were you in?
I'm in actually several. So I played like 4 different people in Poker Face, and you only see my face for like a fraction of a second for most of them. But the scene that I'm particularly proud of is in episode 4. Just after there's a commercial break, there's a camera panning down from a tree, and it focuses on Natasha, of course, and she asks this migrant worker for a cigarette, and it's actually me leaning up on the back of a pole or back of the tree or something, and I by mistake I said, "Here you go." And we did it in like one take.
I mean,
yeah.
What could you not say?
Right. Because she wasn't even looking at me. She asked me for the cigarette and then looked away. And I said, "Oh, here you go." Right. And then she took it from me and said, "Thanks." And I said, "No problem." And then I was supposed to hop into this truck. And they, while they did not bump me to a principal for that, they actually, they came up to me afterwards. They said, "Hey man, like, you're not supposed to talk." And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry." They were like, No, we loved it, but don't ask us for any money. And I was like, "No problem." I was so thrilled because I'll tell you what, that show alone was responsible for getting me into SAG, because I got all my waivers pretty much from just Poker Face. So I was so thrilled that they wanted me, number one. Number two, they gave me the opportunity to get into SAG. And number three, that I actually got to have a line doing this for not even 2 months, so I'm not even mad that I didn't get $900. It was a great day. It was a great experience. And I loved it.
But it was more realistic. And the only, damn, that sucks. Because
it's okay. No,
that really does suck, because your instinct was actually there. That really does suck, and it could get political. The only thing was, I didn't mention before, is that how the director did love it. We had to do a second take, and there was a conversation just similar to yours. And the second AD, he came. They said they want you to do it again. So I'm like, all right. But when the second AD came up to me, we're going shoulder to shoulder, and we're not like really looking at each other. But he kind of made his position on the situation known to both of us, where he's like, that could have gone either way for you.
Yeah.
Those were his exact words.
But you know what? I like your mentality, where it's like you don't mind getting fired, because like, I guess the way I think of it is like, look, you can get fired from a show, you can get fired from a set, you can get fired from a day of acting, but nobody can fire you from being an actor. You know what I mean?
No, not for being your actor. And I never went with the intention of sabotaging the work. No,
of course not. Of course not.
I don't think anybody really would ever, as an actor, deliver.
And if you do, you're probably going to be shown the door pretty fast.
And everybody in the group is going to know that's your character as a human being. There's certain things you just do not do. Correct. And it's just like we're trying to make a living. Right. And it can get very political, unfortunately, and the budget is the budget, and sometimes there's no flexibility. And I'm in a position right now where we're actually going to be filming our smallest of small things, where it's literally just one scene, but it's a training exercise for us, because we got some big things on the horizon, but we gotta literally get a couple of exercises under our belt to know exactly what type of insurance we're going to need, like who do we go to if we do need more money, and how to just operate within the budget that we do got. So we're actually starting that in May. So we have this thing called the writer's room in the AFC. So everybody has a story to tell. Great. And as a nonprofit, we have a way of actually raising money pretty well outside of Indiegogo, Kickstarter, WeFunder, all of these things. So basically, we're not so worried. Oh, no problem. There's not really amount of worry, but it's literally at that point where we're kind of like what you were saying earlier about getting back into it. There's not a wrong time to do this at this point, because we're prepared for the next step, but now it's just a matter of executing the next step.
And hey, man, you may not have all the answers, but if you've been in show business, you kind of know, you go with the flow, shit happens, and you roll with it. You roll with the punches, man, and that's just how it. And sometimes the magic happens that way. So.
Well, I think that's the whole I think that's exactly what it's always been, because the question every single person asks, how do we break into it? That's the funny thing. You're not breaking into anything specifically. It's such a mysterious, random thing
Right.
Like there is studio work where you really try to, create content consistently because you have the distribution, but it always starts with the script and what actors you actually have. And then there's so much ego that gets involved. So all of these things. Meanwhile, when you are literally just the background actor or the kid or the guy that just graduated high school or the guy that literally just moved to a new area and you have no idea what you're doing, on set, we know what we're capable of doing, but not always the what we're doing part, but somehow it really just works out.
It always does.
That's
for the
the
most
thing.
part. Yeah, it always does.
It's my take on it because that was the pattern every single time on being like on 100 fucking film sets where there was this organized chaos.
Yep.
But but it was, I don't know, like the experience of it was sort of like, a training exercise for me, but I would always like look back on how it turned out just to kind of get an idea of how kind of chaotic and zero communication there was in different departments there were, and just kind of seeing how it all worked out. And then the story is actually damn good.
Well, I got to be honest with you, whether it was on a movie set or actually working at a television studio or whatever the job was in the entertainment industry that I've had, that has been a reoccurring theme, which is organized chaos, and maybe not even that organized chaos. It's just,
that's what I mean. It was very miscommunication, the departments, the this, the that,
and egos and disorganization. Yeah.
Like I've had phone calls at random, like I forget. Maybe it was through Sylvia Faye where, I was probably working 2 or 3 gigs that month, but some people did not show up to set that one day. And I was one phone call saying, can you be on set in an hour? And, where there's that type of organized chaos where they don't have enough people and all of a sudden you got to make a rush downtown.
Yeah. And hey, I mean, sometimes, there will be an opportunity in that chaos for you.
Absolutely. Because you never know what's going to happen, who you're going to meet, what you're going to learn from it. And I always highly strongly recommend don't waste the opportunity to literally hone in on your craft, because in the context of school, if you want, we could definitely talk about your education and your school, your development, or the school of hard knocks. But for me, I went to conservatory, got very lucky, and then I wrapped up at the neighborhood playhouse. Now these are controlled, like, call them studio sets, but it's the same room every time, and then we're really focused on human behavior and like really isolating that. The only thing you're really not taking into account is like the elements, like natural habitat in the elements and working, and the noise of the set and the cars and the pedestrians, like real life meeting theatrical life, and how to like really get the experience of putting sweat equity into that. So for those maybe listening, background acting is not like it's not a wasted opportunity, because it's sort of like an authentication process that I feel like, and a verification process of, are you capable, or are you actually willing to really, really, truly, honest to God, do this type of work? Because even though you might be in the background, there's something magical there happening that
you're an essential part of it. You are an essential part of it.
100% essential. And, there's guys like who had the opportunity to actually pretend for just a moment and invent a backstory, just like you would have to do in school, of like, what was that war movie that came out not too long ago, where a bunch of guys were being evacuated from Germany and they're having to go back to England across the US Channel. And they were all at the beach, all in line, and getting on a boat. So it'll occur, like, I'll remember it momentarily, but it wasn't, I keep thinking Valkyrie, but no, that's not Valkyrie. No, it's something, I don't know. It's like somebody listening knows what it is. But anyway, my point being, all right, fine, I'll use Wonder Wheel. I got to play just like an Italian immigrant at Coney Island in Wonder Wheel with Kate Watson. I got to meet Woody Allen and Justin Timberlake. And, I got to experience like the shoes, the texture, the feeling of the sand in the shoes when you're actually walking on the beach versus walking on the boardwalk, and literally just seeing, like, you're actually literally in that universe that the camera sees, but you see it too. And there's everybody just going about their random day, just literally looking the part. And you can't take that for granted, because you're, whether you believe it or not, or see it or not, you know, you're not yourself anymore. You're playing a character, but you actually are getting a moment to actually live in that time period.
Yeah. And
So
I don't know. I found it very rewarding and fun, but like we were talking about before the show, it is feast or famine. And, you know, it can be, you are going to have to work like, you know, other jobs if you're, you know, if you're doing this kind of stuff. And, you know, it is luck, you know, if sometimes you'll get cast for a part just because, you know, they like your look. And that's what it is. Like, wasn't some audition or magic that you did, or you know, you did something random on set that somebody liked and they're like, okay, you get the fuck in there. Like,
give them $900. We got it in the budget.
Exactly. You know,
but no, you're absolutely right, because when it does come to luck, it's really you being prepared for that opportunity. But you're lucky in this, where the opportunity, it's not rare. It's not rare at all. It's quite common, but that's where background acting kind of comes in. I'm not a big fan of the gig, because that's not how we're actually in it. You know, it's almost like a boot camp in a sense, and you'll graduate from when you know you're ready to move up.
Exactly.
But I think it's a true process where you could actually really, as an artist, and really just like remember the sensation of sand in your sandals, something like that. And you could bring that to a character, especially on stage. You know, like once you create memory, and you could do emotional memory, you could translate that into a theatrical production.
For sure. And getting back to what you're saying about, like, you know, maybe you don't feel as like creative, or that you're not getting to express your own creativity doing, you know, roles and stuff like that. Well, that's why you have a podcast. That's why I started a podcast. That's why I do, you know, voice work. That's why I do my own writing for little skits, you know, in my podcast or on stage or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You can still be creative and use your creativity, you know, when you're not on, you know, when you were hired as a background actor, but that's not necessarily all you are. You know what I mean? You're still
not at all. That's just a time, you know, and
right.
It's really hard to kind of create an analogy sometimes with other industries, but you know, like that's honestly what it's like being on a film set. There's downtime, there's patience, there's only one scene, only 4 hours to shoot one scene on average, you know, and that's the process. And, you know, it's good to have that, I guess that strategy, or like that plan, that program. But when it does come to you, you do have to be developed, you know, because you're not an absolute. I consider a human being as a conduit, and it's a machine. It's an instrument, and you're in full control of your instrument, and it gets very it gets very spiritual when you get more experience or dive deep. You know, it becomes something else, and creativity is actually essential to I don't want to say the human condition, because I don't consider it a condition, but creativity is essential because that actually influences life.
Yeah, and I would say that the more you do, the more you're exposed to at least that creative world. While it may not necessarily be your show, but you know, you can find inspiration and inspiring, you know, details everywhere you look. So if you're trying to be creative, now don't get me wrong, I've suffered from writer's block myself. Like I said, I haven't been on stage in like 2 or 3 years. So, you know,
motion.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But you can find that inspiration and that creativity simply by being around other people who are inspired and creative. You know what I mean? So
100%. Like once you're in actually any environment, you're gonna become
right. You're gonna soak up that energy. You know, you're gonna and become a part of it, which is also what I love. I'm like, I would say again, you know, I don't really care about seeing myself like, in the back of my head in Succession or whatever the hell I've done. You know, I've done Law and Order a bunch of times, and you know,
I'm really trying to catch on to that show too. Like I'm watching it, but I don't know if it's just me. I'm not soaking it up. And
Which one?
Succession.
Oh, Succession.
Like I'm watching it, and I'm like, I'm picking up on rich family, 10 billion, Donald Trump, all this crap.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to see what's behind going on, or just take it as face value. But we got 4 seasons, and I'm like, I don't want to be rich. I don't want these people to be my friends.
I mean, I think that's kind of the point of the show is like, you can have all this wealth and status, and like you still really, these people make your skin crawl, and you really wouldn't want to be them, in a lot of ways. But
I do not like that a rich organization has such an impact and influence on the independent film market, because now it's like we're kissing their ass, and I was like, fuck them. I don't want to. No, I mean, and that's where I was coming from, because it's like, wait, that's the only thing I really took from. They have a theme park. They're in independent film. They have news and media and stuff. But what do they actually want? I don't know.
What do rich people ever want, which is more.
But see, that's the thing, though. Like there's not one case that a single one of these characters actually gave something away. They didn't. There was not one thing. There was not one thing given other than fucks given. There were so many fucks given around that table where they were just literally like, they were making each other beg around like dogs and shit, like for hot dogs and stuff. It's just like one good punch to the face. There's like not 1 ounce of humility in these people. None.
No.
Not one fucking ounce. Even when they have like accidentally kill somebody driving, spoiler alert, like all these little things, they are so fucking cowardice in every shape of the word.
Yeah, and wrapped up of like, how does this affect me? What about me? Fuck that guy I just ran over. Like, what's gonna happen to my life?
What I mean? But so it, like, is that what it's really about? It's just like, because I'm trying to relate, and like I don't want to jerk off on a window or anything like that. I'm trying to like figure out.
I don't know if you're supposed to relate to these characters so much that like you empathize with them, or feel like any part of them really resonates with you as a person.
I'm feeling so sorry for these people. That's exactly how
I'm not.
I feel sorry for these people, because like it's like, you know what? They have absolutely no idea how to survive. There's not 1 ounce of, there's not even one shred of survival intuition that they actually have. They're so wrapped up in that context where it's not, they're living in a fantasy world.
Welcome to Happy Corner. This project strives to make safe housing areas for stray cats at an affordable price. It's so easy to put together that even your children could have fun making one. Help keep cats and other animals safe with their own little Happy Corner homes. You can help this project become a reality by donating to the GoFundMe page. Happy Corner homes are a great way to show those animals in need it's okay to be happy.
In a sense.
In a sense, yeah, but I mean, they've got the resources to make that fantasy a reality for them. And what would happen to these people if they didn't have money? That's a good question. Because they probably would.
That's my point, and that is my exact point. That's where I feel like that's where things actually get real. And this idea of, I don't know if it's the appropriate term. I'm still trying to understand it. But a false dichotomy. They're creating a reality which appears, quote unquote, what is real, with the resource primarily as a tool, which happens to be money, and just kind of like coasting as this image that they've created and that they're all a part of and agreed to. And yet they're without that essential item to them, there's absolutely zero to them.
No, there's no depth to a lot of these characters at all, but I think again, it's one of those like shows. It's kind of like, it's the train wreck of like these disasters of human beings that you kind of love to hate, and you almost can't look away from, because they are at their very core, if not awful, then just empty. And you are kind of like, thank God that's not
why
me, even though they have all the money in the world. Yeah.
No, but that's the thing though.
Right.
At what point do we actually recognize that their money is not real? At what point do we actually accept and actually talk about the facts?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting concept because money's not real, just like borders, you know, in terms of like countries and stuff. We made all this shit up at one point,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
to function in order to function. You know, money was created because, you know, we needed a better system than bartering. But at least trading an apple for a goat, at least you're trading real things. You know, money is just an idea, a concept that we've made up to make society work the way that it works, and we're comfortable with the way it works, which is why we perpetuate the idea of money, you know. But it's not any less imaginary.
That's the interesting part, you know, and how we all sort of agree to this.
Right.
Something
it's like it's the social contract. It's part of our social contract. We agree that it's wrong to like kill people. We agree that money is worth something, and you know, those ideas have merit as long as we believe in them.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, because I agree. And it's like, you know, I've been having some really interesting conversations on the value of money and sort of like the value of an artist and what they contribute to society that, you know, you can't really put a financial value towards.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, there, what was, I forget the artist's name. There was like the guy who like taped the banana to a poster board or something and sold it for like millions of dollars. I mean, yeah. No, it's a real thing. And there are those kinds of artists, which are kind of like mocking and, you know, taking advantage of, you know, really wealthy people by, you know, they have if you can get a famous enough name, you could literally take a shit on the floor.
But see, isn't that interesting?
It is. It is interesting.
But see, here's the thing. It's almost like the power status flips. The person with the money doesn't have any of the power, but the creator itself had the power.
For sure. And you know, and more power to that creator. I mean, if you could tape a banana to the ceiling and sell it for $1 million, more power to you. You know, I don't begrudge that, but is that great art? I don't know if that is. Not to take anything away from great artists, though.
Well, we always but see, there was, oh God, Nicky Newark. One of my first independent films was called Nicky Newark. We did it back in 2009. This is like day one for me, you know, but there was a question when I saw it at the premiere that was asked in the film, what is art? And that stuck with me after like now 15 years, give or take, where, you know, as now an artist, or I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself very artistic. Like I could produce art in a sense, and words, you know, blah blah. I have you know what I mean.
A wordsmith?
I'm definitely not a wordsmith at all. I made up a couple of words like rural. Apparently that was not a word because you could be unruly. Oh, ruly. I invented the word ruly because unruly is unruly. And then I invented ruly, and somebody said that's not a word. And meanwhile, I just fucking said it, like you heard me say it. So how is it less of a thing because you don't it doesn't click with you? Fucking wordsmith junkie. So, but it was funny because English was my worst subject ever. I spoke it my whole life, but apparently there's a reason behind English. But it's actually pronounced non-ruly. Well, how could anything be unruly if there is no ruly?
Right. No, I hear you.
You know, like realistic. That's a word. Unrealistic. Fuck you. Ruly. I invented it. And if I decide,
and you're sticking to it, God damn it.
I'm sticking to it. You know what? Like, fuck you. Shakespeare did it. It was only like what 400 years ago. Kiss my ass.
There's a T-shirt for you. Fuck you. Shakespeare did it.
All right, guys. If you make any money doing that, please donate to the AFC. You'll get a tax deduction. What really but that was the thing though that really made it interesting about what is art, because my personal take is that art itself, it's not an absolute. There's no clear cut, dry definition on what art actually is, and there's a lot of graffiti artists, you know, like OB Giant, that, you know, get in trouble for graffiti art. And the cops would have this point of view, or one in particular is like, it's not art if it's not in your grandmother's, hanging up on your grandmother's wall. Well, okay.
Well, that's a very, I would say that's pretty outdated or kind of myopic view
Well,
of what art is. But
that's the point, is because he does have an absolute understanding, and God knows my grandmother always had an impression on me, especially from Brooklyn. No question about it.
Yeah.
But see, that's where I kind of accept that as an artist, I can't ever call myself that until I maybe, I don't know, respect and understand what art really is. But to me, art doesn't have it's a description. You could describe art, but you can't define it. You know,
I would say it's got a subjective meaning depending on who you are. I mean, to me, art is something that can provoke an emotional response or provoke a thought that you otherwise have not had yet. To me, that's what art is. And it could become in any format. It could be graffiti. It could be a Rembrandt painting. It could be a stand-up comedy performance. I mean, I remember one time I was walking outside the street of I was in Union Square, and I was near back when they still had Forbidden Planet there. And I remember seeing this, I guess.
I remember that.
Yeah, I remember
that.
I remember seeing this piece, I guess somebody had made, where they had taken a number of quarters, right? And they had glued them, like, I guess using a glue gun, onto the sidewalk, spelling out the word change. And of course, there were no quarters left because some asshole probably, dug them all out with a screwdriver or something, but you could see the indentation of the glue, and I'm just imagining on so many levels, there's some asshole digging these quarters out of the glue on the sidewalk, and it says change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's art,
That is very creative, because it's well, no, it's also like, keep the change.
Right. And also, here's some change.
Yeah. Or how about
maybe you want to change your life if you're digging quarters out of the fucking street, maybe you might want to change what you're doing. I don't know.
I think the result of something artistic is there's more than one question from that impression, because like maybe we want to put a little logic to it, or like enjoy the fun or the experience of it. But that's what I mean, though. It's not limited to just one thing, as just pieces of metal in the concrete. That's it, because it's not an absolute. It's going to actually stir the pot to the point where there's different flavor of questions. Right.
And you might get something entirely different from the same piece that I might. And to me, again, that's art. Art's subjective. You might, see something, angry and violent or I see something beautiful, or I see something terrifying, or you know what I mean? Like, people can have very, very different, impressions of the same thing that we're all looking at, but it's making us feel different ways, and that's interesting to me.
Well, kudos to the creator,
For sure.
Because we don't know who did that, I'm sure.
No, and it's anonymous. That's almost part of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You don't know who did that, but they did it.
So like, I know an artist who actually is part of that world, but it's such a league of its own, where that transcends like the sportsmanship of it all. But it's, in a manner of speaking, where literally like it's very random, but only these guys in particular are the ones actually doing these random pieces of art that actually kind of tells a little bit of a story. But these are the guys that all like, it's invite only type of a stuff, and the majority of them actually do not actually know each other, but they know the style of work. And then there's like, which is actually really kind of cool, that there's like a very well kept secret society where they're actually doing these very like, like, I think it's nice personally, they're not destroying anything. It comes off a little messy sometimes, but at the same time, it's creativity.
Hey, life is messy, man.
It's a kind of messy, kudos to the guy who designed like the streets of the city of New York, because it was pretty, straightforward. Like, you ever compare Boston streets, or see two people comparing the streets of Boston and the streets of Manhattan?
Yeah.
I thought the guy who interpreted that, I don't remember who it was, but I thought that was the interpretation of the two was more artistic than the two itself, because he pretty much said, he jumped the line like, why did you design the streets that way and with a Boston accent? Well, because fuck you, that's why.
What a Boston response.
That's the best part about it, and I think art, honestly, God's honest truth, it's top to bottom, left to right, it's 360, even within you, it's everywhere. And sometimes honestly, if when you're ready to see it, it's going to find you.
That's another aspect of the equation. Like I said, you might be in a certain place as opposed to someone else, and you're going to get two different interpretations from the same piece depending on who you are, what your state of mind is, what your experience is, what your background is, what triggers you, whatever, versus me.
Yeah.
Well, it's different answers to all those questions.
Well, to go back to what you were saying earlier on your different perception of the same person, maybe even the same material, there's a different takeaway.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's just part of the growing process. And, as a stand-up comedian, when there's things that change, you change. And at the same time, funny thing about comedy, when you're actually able to open up, there's not an absolute to you,
Yeah.
And so fuck you, cancel culture, if whatever that actually really means,
again, I'm in the middle of this. Part of me is I want comedians to express themselves and be able to challenge and push boundaries and step over the line. But I am not a fan of bullying and punching down. I'm not a fan of that. I still think you should have the room and the flexibility to really articulate whatever is on your mind, and if you can structure a bit that's funny using whatever, it could be racial slurs, it could be this, or it could be that, but if you can structure a bit that's funny, more power to you. And if you can't, if it's not funny and the people speak, you got to be willing to face the repercussions of what you made.
Don't be a dick. How about
don't be a dick? That's a pretty easy way. Yeah, don't be a dick.
Just don't be a dick. Don't be a
dickhead. Come on, we're all here to have fun.
Yeah, lighten up. Lighten up. Yeah, lighten up. Everybody's got issues.
Yeah, including me, and hell, a lot of stand-up comedians get up there and they bear their issues. It's almost a therapy session for them. More power to them, as long as they can make it funny. It's cathartic to not only bare your soul in front of other people, but to watch someone bare their soul in front of an audience. It's kind of beautiful to me anyway. I love the art form, even though it's considered a very low and graphic art form.
By whom?
By comedians. They say it's one of the lowest art forms there is.
But so there's actual, there's a measure to it. You could quantify it. You could weigh it.
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
So, if it's low, what are you comparing it to?
Oh, I guess the upper echelons of art, the great, Shakespeare performances, or a great, painting, or this or that, or all the quintessential classic, extolled forms of what fine art means. And then there's some asshole on stage telling dick jokes.
But to the point, it's called the joke.
Right.
But
I love it. And again, to me, art is stand-up comedy is one of the greatest art forms. That's why I love it. That's why I wanted to pursue it and do it. I don't care if it's considered a low-brow art form. To me, it's an art form nonetheless. And it's something that I enjoy. And if that's how I express myself, then fuck you. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And your cancel culture. And to your point, it's you said it yourself, art triggers an emotional response.
I think so.
Well, I think you're right. It does, and sometimes you do get triggered where it's something that it's an external influence in a sense, and one thing that I've spoken about before with the previous guest is, sort of like perception, where yes, you could actually consider something very low, but there was actually something that was brilliant once, you started thinking a little bit outside the box that I picked up on when I was watching Captain America. And remember that scene where they were all trying to be the first one to reach the flag?
So I got to be honest with you. I kind of stopped at the Marvel Cinematic Universe after, I don't know, geez Louise. I think the last one I watched was the first Infinity War. But,
so then I'll translate this in a funny way. Have you ever met a tall girl and you wanted to buy her a drink and you start talking to her or anything like that? And she ever asked you the question, how tall are you?
I don't know if that precisely has happened to me before, but what happens?
So now let's change her perception unknowns to her. Now she just asked you a question, and why don't you ask her a question, at also providing an answer. So go ahead, ask me how tall I am.
How tall are you?
Vertically or horizontally? So that's what. So you'll find out. So, so I mean, one way to find out. So, but see, that's my point. When you actually put yourself in a place of like a position, when you position yourself and you have this perception of, let's just call it height, on, you know, how grand things actually are versus the lowest form of comedy. Okay, so let's just say there are different scales, there's different measures, there's different weights. Is it an absolute, like you cannot move it? Does it have a foundation?
No, I actually don't necessarily believe that. I mean, I think if art is expression, then any kind of expression is art, no matter what it is. It could be an oil painting or a guy on the street, you know, or the fucking what do you call it? The naked cowboy. To me, if he's expressing himself, that's art, and that's his art, and that's great art.
And he's triggering a lot of emotion because
and he's triggering a lot of different emotions.
A lot of emotion getting triggered right there now in Times Square.
But more power to him.
But see, that's my point. On, you know, your position about something doesn't make anything an absolute on what it actually is.
No, it's just to me. Again, I'm not speaking for anybody else other than myself. You know?
So, but I mean, like, we got to respect. You got to respect your own. You're not disrespecting anybody else's position about anything, as if you're just respecting your own. You know, because there's no greater person about a subject or anything in any way, shape, or form, because that's ego. You know,
none of us is in such a high, you know, like moral position to be supreme arbiter of, you know, what is funny, what is art, what is this, what is that, you know. It's nobody. And if they say they are, they're full of shit, you know.
Exactly. And oh my God, you could actually sell like toilet paper from recycled books or pages of books and make that into art and just give it to that guy and just be like, this is for you when you need it. Because one day you'll understand.
For sure.
I really wanted to ask you though more about your podcast, the Red Channel.
Oh yeah. I was hoping you would actually. So yeah. I mean, this was kind of born again, like in COVID. So I guess when I stopped doing stand-up comedy, I wanted to still have an outlet to be comedic and also kind of get my voice out there. And this kind of started with me and two friends of mine who I've known since grade school, who are, in my opinion, they're the smartest people I've ever known. And they're the funniest people I've ever known, although they wouldn't describe themselves as comedians at all. But they're very intelligent, very, very empathic, very, very articulate. And we thought of a way for us to, because it was COVID and we couldn't really hang out together. We were like, hey, well, let's start a podcast just, you know, for shits and giggles, really for us, but we wanted to get our voices out there. So basically the show's called Red Channel Condition, and we cover a wide variety of topics. You know, a lot of podcasts are like, oh, it's true crime or it's this or it's that. And not really. We'll talk about anything. We try to stay away from like the doom, gloom news cycle stuff, although we're not above covering certain, you know, stories in politics. We cover pop culture, movies, video games, you know, social, you know, commentary. We love to do skits. You know, we love to do little, I guess, radio skits since it's a podcast. There's no visual element to our podcast. It's just audio. You know, but we did a skit because we saw in the news about, you know, quiet quitting Taliban, which we thought was hilarious. You know, we did there was a real news story about how because the Taliban, you know, because after our withdrawal, you know, they're having to actually, you know, administrate and run their country, and they're getting bored. They don't want to do it. So they're quiet quitting. And we made a skit about it.
That's
this was too good of a concept for us to not make fun of. Like,
that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, so stuff like that. You know, we did
quiet quitting.
Yeah. I mean, please. I think it's in maybe we just wrapped up our third season, so if it's not I don't think it's in the finale. I think it's in the the penultimate episode. But yeah, please check us out. I'd really love, if you guys are interested in, looking at society and things that are going on, in all aspects, of American and world culture today through like a kind of nerdy and comedic lens, and people that are not afraid to kind of laugh at everything that's going on and laugh at ourselves and laugh at all the stupid stuff that's going on in the world and talk about some of the cool stuff that we really love. We'll talk about, they love Marvel movies. So we've covered like, stuff like that, or we might be covering AI or, some automation, scientific invention that just came out that could, change the world. It's different every episode, and we try to keep it fresh. And we have a cast of characters as the hosts and the co-hosts. So
it's character driven, and
yeah,
it's the adventures of so and so, and it's always going to be different, huh?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's us. I mean, it's me and my two friends, but they're very distinct characters from one another. They have very distinct senses of humor and very distinct interests. And, we'll each submit a topic for the week. One person will submit a topic, the second person, third person, and then we'll all discuss what it means to us. And then if there's some humor or something we can work in there, we'll make a skit, and, we'll have a little fun along the way. So yeah, check it out.
So you got your Saturday noon series.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Because, like Saturday is a long day. I love Saturday night. But even still, there should be so many more. I don't want to say there probably is, but that level of comedy where you could actually share that on a small scale locally, right, on a Saturday afternoon,
And for me personally, I love doing the show because it gives me a chance to showcase some of my voice talents, So, we did a Rick and Morty skit when Justin Roiland got in hot water for,
I'm not going to interrupt. I don't mean to.
No, it's okay.
It never caught on. I was a Cartoon Network kid.
Yeah, so am I.
But it's just I don't know if I just grew up and I just don't care anymore, but I just could not just Rick and Morty. The names are just the thing. Like for me, it's like a turnoff. I'm looking forward to Kenan and Kel coming back in Good Burger Part 2.
Oh, okay. All right. No, yeah, for sure.
Call me a 90s kid, but dude, I'm these, I don't know. I have preferences.
Speaking of being a 90s kid, I mean, we covered a topic about, apparently there's so much nostalgia for the 90s. 90s con is actually a thing. Like the 90s people are dressing up like Tommy Pickles, like 37, 40-year-olds. No, 40-year-olds in fucking diapers dressing up like Tommy Pickles and shit. And like all your favorite characters from the 90s. It's a convention now that you can go to if you're so inclined.
Where is this?
I can send you the article.
Please.
I can send you the article. Yeah.
No,
But this is the kind of shit we cover on the show. We're like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So.
But no, it is. But see, that's the thing though. It wasn't really like a global accepted fact that the 90s is a period piece now. For any type of work. In mid 90s, when Jonah Hill did his series and Honey Boy, when Shia LaBeouf made that, it was all set in the 90s. And even now, trying to get like 90s anything, it's on the borderline of vintage.
Well, I got news for you. I mean, my 2019 Mazda 3 car is going to be a vintage car in 50 years or whatever. All periods in time, they you never realize that you're living through just kind of a moment in time when you're doing it. It always seems like, well, this is the present. This is the way the world is. But then when you look back to the 2000s, even that is its own era.
No, and I
know what I mean?
That was high school for me, and it was.
Right.
I'm listening to music, and I'm getting triggered.
Right.
Like some good, like alternative rock band music, and it's just like, where are the good movies? And I'm stuck streaming, watching some of the unfortunate, uncreative Netflix originals. And it's just like a dime a dozen where you actually get something good within a year. But it's like, I want to go out and fucking create now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good impetus to go and be the creator, because if there's so much, and hey, I'll say as a background actor, the fact that there's 50,000 different fucking streaming services is great because they're all hiring, but they're all pumping out shit after shit after shit. So if you want to make, what did I don't know if it's Gandhi, but it's one of those historical figures. It's like, be the change you want in the world, So yeah, if make your shit, and be creative, because I guarantee you, if you're looking at, Netflix and you can't find a show you want to watch, then fucking make one.
Thank you for saying that, because honestly, that's definitely like I think our audience, if I got to limit it or just kind of narrow it. It's a filmmakers podcast, and we encourage everybody who's actually getting in the business. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and definitely take advantage of this platform to be on it, and listen to those who actually have a couple extra steps on the path than you do, because there's a lot of takeaway from it.
For sure. Hey, you're never too old or too experienced to learn something new,
No,
or to listen to somebody's experiences that are not yours, Always listen.
Yeah, acting 101.
But yeah, I appreciate you giving me a chance to plug the show. I encourage you to check it out if you haven't, and listen to some of our skits. We have a YouTube channel. We've uploaded a good number of our skits too.
Oh, we're gonna tag the hell out of it on YouTube and Instagram. Don't you worry about that.
Okay, great, awesome.
We're leaving behind the breadcrumbs for others to follow,
and I appreciate that. I really appreciate you having me on the show today. Honestly,
I'm glad you're local, dude. I'm in New Paltz like on a regular basis.
Come to Snugs. We'll have a beer.
Snug. Is that the pool hall one?
That's Bacchus, and that's I don't want to speak ill of any of the local businesses, but I would say
you have your Serenity space.
Yeah, I have my preferred bar that I would go to.
Well, they got 30 bars on Main Street, dude.
Yeah. Most of them are college bars or sports bars, and that's not really my scene. But I'm more of a dive bar kind of guy.
Yeah. All right, we'll go. So, how close is it to P&G's?
Not far at all. If P&G's is like right across the street from Starbucks, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
Snugs is like 2 blocks down, like right near where the bridge is before you get out of town.
Oh, the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, it's the bottom of the hill. That's where Snugs is.
Well, there's a tiny little mini mall there to the left.
Yeah, that's Water Street Market. That's Water Street Market, and that's a great place to hang out. There's actually a really amazing bar there called there's actually two. There's Jarred, and there's oh god, I'm forgetting the other name. It'll come to me. But it's got a really great view of the mountains. It's a really awesome place to hang out.
Like that whole area right there, doesn't really get utilized for filmmaking as well, because
it's starting to. I mean, again, Poker Face. There's a lot of there is some production going on in the Hudson Valley, and I think there is more as time goes on. I think they're building a couple new studios near Sardi's and stuff like that. So,
well, I'm really glad, because they had an economic boom in the last 10 years. I was shocked. I left Orange County, and by the time I came back, just to kind of come back for a minute, all of a sudden, Newburgh has Choice Films, 6.
Yeah. There's
fucking legitimate sound stages, like Kaufman Studio sound stages, and there's a tax credit up here in the Orange County of 40%.
Oh, that's great news. It's
stupid good. It's just how the fuck are you not that's just you're saving half your production right there.
And it's a beautiful place to film.
It is, and you can get very creative up here. And honestly, the labor is so reliable. I'm part of that, and everybody who was born in the city, for the most part, they live up here. And even Newburgh itself is behind the scenes called the 6th borough.
Wait, what did they call there's a word for I think Kingston, or it was like no bro, where instead of Soho they called it North Brooklyn or something, no bro.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Oh,
but there's people who are very territorial. There's almost like a street gang kind of scene in Kingston, where they're they find out you're from Brooklyn. I mean, that's fucking beef. You know what I mean?
Really? It's just then I got to go into backstory saying you're telling me I can't get to fucking Woodstock because I got the no bros hanging out.
You might get cut, buddy. You might get cut.
I'm the Canarsie kid, dude. You want to go that road?
It's not me, okay? I'm from Brooklyn too. I almost got jumped in Kingston because I was showing off my Brooklyn flavor a little too much. So
fucking what the fuck? All right, no, it's just just the idea of it. It's just is that why I really like filmmaking? Because I'm into cutting and shooting. There's a comedy is relative. But no, like Woodstock is right up in that area.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Yeah, gorgeous. Not Bethel Woods, but Woodstock is right there.
Yep.
Both. Have you been to Bethel Woods?
I have not.
I saw my first Styx concert there.
Oh, kick ass.
Oh my God, it was wonderful. It was like I was honestly, I was crying. Like I wasn't crying, but I was in that. There was so much emotion and built up where I just had to let it out, and I'm just like, oh, this is so good.
Dude, you got to have that catharsis, wherever you can get it. Honestly, I wish I could, sometimes I feel like art, I wish it touched me like that more often. Cause like, I love to get hey, a good cry or, whatever, man. Like just to feel that much emotion and to let it out is almost a luxury sometimes.
Well, other than podcasting, and maybe we'll have a beer and we'll do a little bit deep dive without like the listeners involved. But do you have some sort of like humanology 102, you got the vocal, you got the physical, you got the artistic painting stuff, you got the mental, you got the social, you got the chemical. But do you have like another type of like just the you outlet that you do to kind of just work aside, where it's more like this is my therapy?
I mean, I've always loved I love being outdoors. I have a lot of hobbies that I would consider give me like my I don't know how you would describe it, my center me or whatever. I mean, hell, I enjoy gardening. I love going on hikes. I like to garden. But again, like I love being creative. I love being silly. This is why I love comedy. This is why I love doing like cartoon voices. We did a skit about I don't know. I mean, you're a '90s kid, so you would remember the Transformers, right? Obviously, Optimus Prime, Megatron. We did a skit about mortgage rates getting too high through that lens, and it was like Optimus Prime saving me from I guess the big bads were Citibank and Capital One, and we kind of gave them Megatron's and Starscream's voice respectively. And I love to have fun, do little silly things that showcase what I can do, and if I can make somebody laugh along the way. That's my zen. I love to make people feel good. I love to entertain. I love to make people laugh. That's what I like to do.
Attaboy. And I didn't want to wrap anything up without bringing up I Come in Peace, because so help me understand I Come in Peace, because like your moment. I'm going to be quiet. Go ahead.
In my opinion, this is the best worst film ever made. And just to give you a little bit of it's a lovable chestnut starring Dolph Lundgren and Brian Benben. And the premise of the movie is that Dolph Lundgren's partner gets killed, ironically, by it's a gang called the White Boys, which are yuppie criminals, kill his partner. And that is interrupted by an alien drug dealer from outer space who is killing people and taking their endorphins, because their endorphins are their drug that they use on their home planet. And so Brian Benben has to team up with Dolph Lundgren to stop this evil alien, and hilarity ensues. It's a quintessential, got everything from like, if you're a fan of 80s movies that are fucking ridiculous,
yeah,
this is the movie for you.
That's funny, because Avatar did something similar in Avatar 2, where actually they're about half the size of a coffee cup. There's a serum inside the whale that the Navy of Earthlings coming to this fucking planet and extracting pretty much the resources just to kind of bring it back. But spoiler alert, if you haven't seen The Way of Water, stop listening to the podcast now. So basically, the takeaway, minus Tarzan, who contributed nothing to the film. I'm sorry, he didn't. And anyway, we have whales now, and the whales actually talk to the people of not the Na'vi tribe specifically, but you got the Polynesian Na'vi on the other side of their Pacific, and there's probably trillions of Na'vi around the planet that we don't know of. But they came across this one little juicy juice inside the whale, which is directly into the conscious, where basically they kill the whale and they just kind of take it back, and that's it. And just
Okay.
let it go. So it's just a curious thing where that whatever it does, I think it's an it just helps people with anti-aging, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, and I'm like, you guys just proved that you could be consciously an avatar up to the point of your memory, and you're actually taking away serum from an animal, instead of just kind of cloning yourself. So what? So you literally have the technology on Earth to clone yourself for long-term use, but instead you're grabbing shit on the other side of the fucking galaxy, which people are willing to pay just so they could kind of not be in that human form or whatever. So it's just like there's some logic to the story that me as EP and humanitarian and Phil Cappadora that I just got a lot of problems with. And I'm like, I get it, but yeah, so what? Like, so it just costs another $1 billion, where it's just like, so basically, like, and I'm the guy I'm playing devil's advocate in the room in this hypothetical situation. It's like, but they do realize, right, that they don't have to do that. So there's a lot of little things about Avatar 2 that, it was a great movie. Love it. Just didn't quite do it for me compared to the first one, which part 2 never does. But, stop killing Free Willy, dude.
I say, fuck that. Don't watch Avatar. If you want to see aliens running around killing people, go watch I Come in Peace.
But okay, to tie it back into I Come in Peace, because it's funny that they can't produce their own endorphins, or like we can't just donate endorphins.
Well, so like I guess the premise is like, like there's no way for us as humans, like endorphins are like a natural. I mean, if you know how they work, like that's your body's way of let's say, your arm gets cut off or something traumatic happens to you. Endorphins are the natural way that your body, it's a chemical your body releases to make you feel pleasure and feel good. That's what, when you're snorting heroin, it's not the heroin that makes you feel good. The heroin releases your endorphins. It triggers your brain to release a chemical that makes you feel euphoria. But it's not like you could drill, a hole into somebody's head, suck out their endorphins and shoot them up, but what if you could, though? And that's a question that I Come in Peace asks and answers. And, again, if you
I mean, it kind of just, it's like, why can't you just donate your brain to science? Because we know how to stimulate the brain, but I think it becomes to the point of something interesting where we don't quite understand what consciousness is, but is producing endorphin more of a subconscious thing than a conscious thing? Or does it have to actually be alive somehow in order actually to produce that thing? Or do you need it actually body for it to produce towards? Like you need all these different components. It's a curious thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me started. We could get so introspective on what consciousness is or isn't. And again, I'm not a philosopher. I don't have those answers. But
oh no, this is science, because we could shoot atoms across space. There's no philosophy there. We're on a mission to Mars right now, because it's like I guess there's enough information that it's possible, but now it's a matter of how and sustainability. Sure. Like, I'm curious about these things because reality really influences art and storytelling, and
vice versa.
And vice versa. So I think there's a really good reciprocating relationship there about being alive that taxes have nothing to fucking do with, and it's a waste of time. Like this is there's so much wrong everywhere where we could just do so much better as a fucking species.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it's like we almost consciously choose to do the wrong. It's funny. I think it was Winston Churchill who had during World War II, who had a famous quote, which was, "You can always rely on Americans to do the right thing once they've exhausted every other option." And sometimes I feel like that's, as a species, that's kind of who we are. It's like, unless we have absolutely no fucking choice to do the right thing, we're not going to.
That's why I identify as a Brooklynite. like fuck you, don't give a fuck. But that's a funny thing. Oh God, Winston Churchill. I never knew the guy was bipolar.
I didn't either, honestly.
Yeah, like he I think he was bipolar and on the spectrum of autism.
That makes sense.
Like from what they were actually like even now. But looking at pictures like black and white.
Right. You wouldn't know it to look at the guy.
No, and he's actually said some really funny speeches, but he's also given amazing good ones too.
Yeah.
which is a curious thing, how Hollywood in some respects have actually really given a platform to some of, like, you know, great actors, experienced veterans, now actually doing a legitimate interpretation of a guy in real life. And that is so hard to pull off.
Yeah, for sure.
It is so, no, I really believe that, like, how to actually embody somebody who we know does exist, because it's not imagination anymore. It's sort of like an interpretation of reality, or like a visual summary of accomplishment, but doing it in an accurate artistic way, you know?
Yeah.
That's hard.
And I don't know, it's a fun thing. Like for me, again, as a somewhat comedic actor, or whatever you would classify me as, I've had and you know, somebody who likes to do voices and impressions. Like it's almost like I guess I have the kind of brain where, like, I love to observe something, and like I can mimic things very well. Like I can do very good impressions of a lot of different things if I can see and kind of get a sense of the mannerisms, and enough exposure to it, you can almost become that thing. And it's kind of fun to play with that a little bit. I would imagine that's sort of the skill set that you would need in order to pull off a role like that, because you're going to have to be true to the character of who this person was and kind of emulate them to a degree, but you're also going to have to bring some kind of level of interpretation and acting to the experience as well. So,
You know what that's called?
what's that?
It's called official art intelligence.
Okay, wait, explain that to me. I'm so curious.
So artificial intelligence, like when you base your, like, you know, algorithms, data.
Yeah.
But now from the more organic approach, as opposed to, like, you know, I guess the artificial part of it, because it's artificial. I just literally flipped official art and artificial just as far as word, because it's a compound word. It's a compound word. Where official art intelligence is literally my interpretation of, you're doing something very intelligently in an official artistic way.
Okay, all right, I gotcha. Yeah,
So,
interesting.
So that's what it's called. And damn it, so many people are really knowing things about me that I never really shared before. Like on my previous podcast, we did a deep dive, wonderful conversation. Katya Saturday was my guest that day, girl from Russia, and what a lovely human being, and talented and cool. But we took a serious moment, like we've had, about actually, like, talking a little bit more about the craftsmanship of acting, and finding, you know, techniques and how to apply it to your art and things like that. And I described to her the catalytic converter that I use to kind of incorporate everything into my work, which is a process called think, be, do. So people are learning more about me. And then to what you were talking about, on, it's not just mimicry, because there's a little bit more of an intent behind it,
Right.
and, like a motive for it. So that to me, once you have those two components, especially in theater, that's where art can be made. And just like when I flip words around, just to kind of summarize it in a more unique way, artificial intelligence has those attributes of, you know, developing this camouflage and this imposter thing. But from a human angle, it's not imposter, it's not counterfeit, it's something a little bit more authentic. It's not a copycat either, but it's something a little bit more unique, which you're creating a character based on, you know, other forms of impressions, which basically brings us to, like, the Get Down series, where, you know, these guys were known for assembling rap and artists based on already established work, but then they created sort of like a subculture of a compilation of those works, which it became its own garden of art itself, you know. So artificial intelligence and official art intelligence is basically the human component, which you bring to the table.
Okay, I'm with it. You actually explained that, and I actually understood it. So thank you.
I'm really glad, you know, when we get real for a moment, where we actually understand what the fuck we're talking about, because it's a very mysterious thing, language. It's even that's really weird and
Language and one consciousness communicating to another. It's almost a miracle that anything ever gets done on planet Earth.
Isn't it weird?
It is weird, man. It's fucking weird. When you think about it too much, it's such a mind fuck that, I don't know. You sometimes don't know how to cope,
Well, to the point of like maybe where you get in like more advanced in gardening. There was something that was actually spoken about, like both in Avatar that I'm reverting back to, but there was something very mysterious about coral, because it's a very garden-like organism, which is almost like an animal. I found
you mean like a coral reef or something like that, or
yeah, exactly.
Okay, right.
Where like a coral is, I think it's not just it's an animal, not just a plant of some kind or a rock of some kind. It's more like an animal, because there's a consciousness to it. Because there's a certain point in time, like every year, how like in like the spring everything blooms and stuff like that. I don't know if they bloom is the right like phrase, but it turns out that every single piece of coral that's not even connected, there's a piece of coral in a lab somewhere and coral on the earth, where there's a function within the actual minute and within the actual day. Every single year they all do this one function at the exact same time, where they're all connected somehow, like this
fucking wild.
Yeah, like this network of whatever they actually are. It's all connected, even if it's separated from itself. They all are blossoming or something at the exact same point in time.
Right.
Just simultaneously around, where it's like you get the chills in your body.
Yeah. Hey, I fully subscribe to the idea that, all of life is connected. The planet could be alive for all I know. Consciousness, for all I know, everything we know, every person on Earth, every life form in existence could be, it could just be the thought of some grander, bigger creature. We could be existing as a thought in somebody else's brain.
Or never-ending story.
Right. Yeah, man. Great night. 80s or 90s. I'm trying to remember. Was that
That's
80s?
That was
80s, right? Yeah, that's 80s.
Yeah, it was 84, 85 when that.
Yeah. My God, I was
somebody
born in
wrote
84.
that or thought of it back in like
Right.
the 70s, by the way. It's just
but that's a real, like, when that's a real hypothesis or theory. Nobody has the answers. I mean, consciousness could be, there could be only one consciousness and we're just little splinters of it and we're all connected in some way. To me, that makes as much sense as a man floating in the sky with 10 commandments of things he doesn't want you to do.
The interpretation of the exact same thing.
Right. So.
Well, that's the mystery of art, because we could actually make these discoveries.
For sure.
Dude, I think you're awesome. And I go to New Paltz on a regular basis. I definitely want to hit you up.
Yeah, hit me up, man. Please do. I'd love to grab a beer or something.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. If people listening in on this podcast say like they dig you, they want to pay you a compliment, or they may want to work with you on a project or something, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I guess the best way to get in touch with me is via email. But I mean, you could look me up on Instagram. I think I can give you all the links and stuff that you
they're gonna get triggered. This is all gonna get tagged, and if you've seen our previous seasons, everybody there's a bio and stuff. We got YouTube, we got the website, and we got Instagram. There's a way, just like preference, email, click, done.
Yeah, honestly, email is probably the best way to get in contact with me, because I'm not I know as an actor or as a comedian or as somebody who likes to do things, I really should be having a huge social media presence, but there's just, I don't know, there's something about the way that, there's something about the atmosphere of social media. While I'm on it, I don't like to be on it that much. So, I don't necessarily. I
get it. It's
but it's a necessary evil, especially if you're in this business. It's a totally necessary tool, and I'm not doing my due diligence by trying to distance myself from it. But hit me up, email us. There's the Red Channel Condition YouTube channel. Leave a comment, say, hey, listen, we love this skit. I would love you to do a voice in some dumb cartoon I'm making, or whatever the case may be. I'm always happy to help. I always love getting involved in anybody's project. And again, I can't thank you enough for having me on the show. I had a great time.
Oh, thank you so much for coming, dude. And we always have the AFC podcast segment on wrapping up the show called The Right Words at the Right Time. And it all stemmed when I first started. I was reading this book called The Right Words at the Right Time by Marcy Hopkins. And it was just a collage, a collective of essays, interviews of well-known public figures, of politicians, athletes, celebrities, very, very strong names that you just know. But every single one of them had this one thing in common where they were actually given the right words at the right time that really got them through thick and thin. So my curiosity for you today, Peter, is there anybody who's actually given you the right words at the right time that have stuck with you after all this time, that got you through everything and led you also to the spot you knew you were destined to be? Or do you have any words of wisdom of your own that you would like to share?
I don't know if anybody ever gave me the right words at the right time, but I'll say this. I mean, I've definitely learned from a multitude of different people in my life, whether they were mentors, parents, friends, even enemies. You can learn a lot from people that don't like you, and you can kind of gain strength and understanding of who you are as a person, who they are. I would say that my advice is just to be open to any kind of experience, be open and accepting of other people. And if if you find yourself, for any reason being an asshole, ask yourself, why is that? Because this probably has more to do with something that's going on with you than it has to do with anybody else. Like we have a beautiful place, we have a beautiful planet that we all share, and in a time when shit is crazy, try to just approach things with a level of understanding and empathy. And I think it'll serve you well in the long run.
Well, those are definitely the right words at the right time for somebody. And you're right. You do. You got to self-reflect once in a while and just ask, why am I being the way I am? And you do. You
may not like the answer, but that's where growth comes from, right?
Yeah, it's a humbling moment because you need humility, or you got to be flexible to have that humility.
I'll tell you what, humility has served me more than ego ever has. I'll say that.
Humility has served me more than ego ever has. That's why. No, it's true, dude. Thank you so much for sharing that.
My pleasure, man. And again, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And good luck. I mean, good luck to the Astoria Filmmakers Club. You guys are doing great. Kick ass.
We got a phenomenal, how do you say that? Small council, as Game of Thrones fans would like to say. We got a great group of people involved. We're 900 strong on Facebook. You got over 3 dozen like in the chamber, in the private room, that are making things working. So it's exciting. And I think it's only going to grow.
Awesome, man. Glad to hear it.
I can't wait to meet you in person. I'm going to check out the Red Channel Condition. And I want to leave you with this for wherever you go. Always remember, never forget community, creativity, and joy.
Good words.
Thank you, sir. All righty. We'll see you soon.
Take it easy.
Ciao for now.